Welcome back, you lovely, lovely viewers. We love you guys, all of you. I mean, welcome to J-Space. Let's start off that way. I hope you guys liked last episode. We talked about some absolutely wonderful things. It was very introductory into the self, me, myself, and I, so to speak. Right, looking in the mirror. How do we feel about us, ourselves? I mean. But yeah, the reception seems pretty good. I mean, we had our 11 subscribers, so more of you subscribe, because 130 of you, 130 of you, watched, and obviously, it was good viewership as well. You guys have good retention rate in terms of listening throughout all of the episodes, so thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed our podcast, and again, we're going to talk about everything like life, love, the pursuit of happiness. That wasn't my quote, but either way, we're going to be talking about all that stuff. So I hope you guys are enjoying that and the in-depth, deep conversations. Again, right at the top, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that way you know when we're uploading. And we're working on getting possible social medias so you guys can sort of keep up with what we're doing and have some new surprising updates sometime soon. So yeah, well, let's get into topics. I'm really feeling talkative. Let's get deep, as they say.
I think we talked about, well, obviously we talked about just changes in life and when we find ourselves in places that we didn't think we would end up. And I think a lot of that sometimes has to do with friendships that you thought you would have forever. The friends that you think, oh, I'm going to raise my kids with them, or we're going to be these old crazy ladies drunk at the bar whenever we're 70, and just kind of the ebbs and flows. And adult friendships, they're so different from when we were young. And yeah, we can get into that.
Yeah, no, friends take us through a lot of experiences in life, right? Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we have, from when we're children to then we get older, and you find the group of cool kids and you try and fit in, and then you go to college and some people party, or like you're saying, like sometimes we grow up with a childhood friend and then they veer off to life and doing something different, or it's always changing, right? The friends
Mm-hmm.
change with us. Um, I can agree to that. I don't know about you, but I also have like different levels of friendship as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
it varies from the idea of like, there's the close friend, right? Then there's the best friend. Then there's the kind of acquaintances more than just friends.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's that friend that you only hang out with like every so often in whatever group that you guys are mutually friends with. But you really wouldn't hang out if your other friend is not there. Like there's
Yes.
those so many like different variations and just layers to friendships. And one of the things I want to talk about, it's like I don't know about you, but I have childhood friends. Like I have friends still that I kept from fourth grade. Actually,
Oh,
my
wow.
oldest is from third grade. Shout
Wow.
out
Okay.
Eugene, you're a fantastic person. But I known them all my life, and one thing that I love is like those friends, or was the saying that how's the saying go? Like a dime of or dime of a dozen.
A dime a dozen.
Yeah, a dime a dozen. There you go.
Yeah.
I apologize. Um, but yeah, no, I've had him for like as a friend, as a best friend for all of my life. He's more of a brother than a friend at that point. He like kind of like went over best friend level and sort of
Mm.
just moved up in life. And how close we are. Even though now, I mean, hey, we haven't really talked more consistently, right? But we're still thicker than thieves. He comes out, and it's like nothing ever happened, right? Like no time has passed. We start right where we left off. It's almost like a podcast, right? You're starting right at the next level, and just
Yeah.
jumping into it. I don't know. Have you
I
had these close friends like that?
I grew up homeschooled, and so my close friends from childhood are my siblings. Um, thank God we all love each other and we all still get along, but it's really interesting in my dynamic that I really didn't start making friends until I moved out of my parents' house. And I feel like I experienced all of the ups and downs of what you normally go through in high school with all of your friends in my 20s. And it was interesting to me because I think I was a little naive going into it because I didn't only have, I definitely had church friends and everything like that, but for the most part, my brothers and sisters were like my best friends. We hung out all the time. The friends we did have were very much like what you were saying. You hang out in groups, but it's not really you're doing one-on-one things with them. And so I think going into friendships as an adult, well, in my 20s, I don't know if you can consider them adults or not mentally, but I don't mean to offend anybody in your 20s, but you'll know what I mean when you're 30. Um, I think I had this naive approach that everyone is out to just like see the best in you, and everyone's your back and everyone treats you like their sibling because that's what I was used to. I was used to my siblings being my friends being my siblings. And so I just had this dynamic in my head that that's how you treat everybody. Like you always have their back. You always have their best interest in mind. You always this. And so for the most part, I think I cultivated a lot of friendships that way, but I also came across some, the mean girls or the guys who had bad intentions that I did not experience in high school and then was experiencing in my 20s. And it was kind of not revolting, what's the word? A jolt to me because it just was not anything that I had ever experienced before. So I kind of felt behind in that sense. And honestly, I'm 32 in May, and I kind of feel like I am just now getting to the point in life where I know how to differentiate between an acquaintance or a friend or just a person who's in your social group who is around you because of what it looks like?
Yeah.
So, yeah, kind of, I have not had a friend since fourth grade unless you count my siblings, which is so different.
No, I mean it's kind of cool because we each had our own sort of individual experience, right? With the friendship levels, right? You learn that sort of
Hmm.
in your 20s, right? And I feel like I had the chance of learning that at a younger age, right? Finding that
Hmm.
age-old friend that's going to stick with me. And I have another friend again from 4th grade that I'm just super close with. And then another one from junior high where we're best friends forever, and we're so connected, and we agree on some things and we disagree, right? But yeah, I was able to have that experience through my childhood of just,
Hmm.
you think that this friend has good intentions and he's going to be the sweetest, coolest guy. But then, oh no, the cool kids come by and maybe they don't really like you. So he's like, oh, I'm just going to tuck myself away and pretend
Hmm.
like you don't exist, right? Or the friends that are friends with you, but it's a joke. There are those people out there that can just be
Hmm.
really mean spirited in that particular way, and I've seen that one more than really
Yeah.
lived it, and it's sad to see. It was not cool. Let's say junior high kids aren't really nice. Like I think that's one of the worst times to be
Kids
alive.
are brutal.
Yeah, they're just learning like slurs, and they're kind of coming into their own, and they're just so much more mean
And
around
hormonal
junior high.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
hormone.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's horrible to go through, but I'm glad I went through it, right? And I can imagine how kind of were you freaked out at all, like sort of venturing off? Like now I'm curious because you're a homeschool kid, so you know, like how was that like getting into socialization, right? Like how did you fare?
You know, it's interesting because I don't know if this is a homeschool thing or maybe this is just my personality, but I have always been very just I know who I am. I know I'm a little bit odd, but I enjoy that about myself. I'm very invested in my hobbies. I don't need approval to know if I like it or not. Maybe it's just because I'm stubborn. I'm a very stubborn, hard-headed person. And so for me, getting out and socializing, I really didn't have any kind of fear in regards to that because I was just like, oh, I just get to meet new people and experience new things and new situations. I also think it helps that because I am a writer, I draw a lot of my characters or situations from going through situations or meeting people. So for me, it's kind of like not an experiment, but it's kind of an inspiration to me to just get out and entertain other people. I feel like as I've gotten older, I'm definitely more of a hermit, but I I got married at 18, moved out of my parents' house, moved 2 hours away. Oh gosh, how old was I? 22, I believe. And so it was really at 22 that I was completely removed from my family. Anybody that I knew came to
Yeah.
a city that I literally didn't know anybody. And I just used that as an opportunity to get to know myself even more and to figure out the kind of life I wanted and to get to know people and just experience things. So I think for me, I've always had a very curious mind, very open to other views, other ways of living, and but then also at the same time very sure of myself and how I wanted to show up. That being said, as sure as I was in myself, I think once I started experiencing other people and other relationships, that really tested that knowledge. And that kind of exposed things in myself because I would try things thinking, oh, I need to do this to abide by this friendship, or like that's fun and that's cool, but it probably isn't sustainable. But I did it because I wanted to be accepted, or I thought I needed to be friends with them because that's what friends do. They stick by you in the hard times and down times and all of that stuff. So I it's definitely been a journey. It's I think my friends helped me through my divorce. Whenever that happened, I don't think I would have made it through that, but it's odd now because I'm not friends with any of those people who got me through it now. But I don't think that's a them issue. I think it's that I was such a different person in my marriage and post divorce, and I've kind of gotten back to myself. And I don't know if I ever would have been friends with them had I stayed true to the core of myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, I was constantly at war with myself in those friendships, and it caused a lot of tension. Not that I'm totally excusing them, they definitely did things that were cruel or mean, or they just used me, but I don't think I showed up the best way either. So I don't know. There's a compatibility thing. I tell people nowadays, treat your friendships as if you were dating somebody because that really just clears a lot of things that we excuse in platonic relationships that I don't feel like you should excuse, like disrespect or someone not caring about your time or not showing up in conversations. You're not going to accept that from somebody you're dating. So why would you accept that from a friend? Because it's very basic relationship standards. I just
Yeah.
talked a lot, so please chime in.
No, you're fine. I wanted to get into that, right? You talked about the idea of treating friendship like you're dating them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which, listen, Eugene, buddy, we're not dating, okay? Let me just put this up. No,
He's gonna expect a kiss next time you see him.
yeah. He's like, where were you? Okay, anyway. um, No, I mean it's an interesting and I say a correct manner of looking at friendships, because in one thing I want to sort of just commend you for is like having to learn that experience of friends at such a short time almost, right? And I
Mm.
mean I would assume that you're still learning, right? Like there's
Oh
so
yeah,
much more
absolutely.
that you have to learn. um that being said, I wanted to say that uh going through life, right? We run into these moments where we have the bad friend, all right? Like, and I'm curious about the things that we've learned from running into bad friendships, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
good ones are easy, right? Like, but I want to step into what were some like maybe pivotal moments of in terms of friendship where you're like, okay, I have to look at the perspective of friendship like we're in a relationship, right? So like take
Mm-hmm.
take me through there, and then we'll bounce off.
It was I want to be delicate in saying this, but there was a situation that happened between me and two friends of mine where I had found out that there was talk about me behind my back, and it was not nice talk, which we all talk about our friends, in most of the time it's in a caring way of like, hey, have you checked in with so and so, or I'm concerned about this, but it was in a manner that was not nice. And I was told about it because the person, another third party who was involved in this group that night, told me and said, like, I just wanted to let you know because if it were me, I would want to know who my friends are. I was like, okay. And so I thought about it for a minute, and then I just kind of called them out on it. And I said, I heard that this happened. I heard that this was the topic of discussion. I think going forward, I'm going to keep that side of my life private. I don't want to get too much into this, but I just want you to know that my feelings are very hurt, but I still like value you guys and I still love you, but I just need some time to process this. And when that happened, when I called them out on that, instead of apologizing, instead of making sure that I was okay or even trying to correct the situation, like, yeah, this was said, I shouldn't have said it, but it was in this manner, like maybe the other person took it in a way that they didn't mean, whatever. They came at me that I was a manipulative person and I was malicious because I had found out this information. And I just think that the world is revolved around me and everything is about me and all of this stuff, and I'm just so selfish and stuck up. And it was in that moment that I was like, wow, I definitely have faults. I'm not going to say that I'm not, but if I were in this situation, if the roles were reversed and I said something about a friend that was very unkind and they found out about it and came to me telling me that their feelings were hurt, and because of the things that I said, they feel like they would need to pull back a little bit, I think I would have a come to Jesus moment and reevaluate myself and reevaluate how I talk about my friends, and I would apologize. And that's what I expected from them whenever I sent that text to them. And instead, I was blamed for finding out this information that I didn't even seek. And I was told that I was manipulative and malicious for having this knowledge. And so it was in that moment that I was like, you know what? If I were still, or if I was dating somebody and they did something that obviously they were in the wrong for, and I called them out on it, and this was their response, I would not stay because I was married and that's what happened in my marriage constantly, and I didn't stay. So, why am I staying in this friendship that obviously doesn't care enough to respect my feelings, doesn't care enough about me to have an open conversation or to speak about me behind my back in a kind light? Whenever there's a platonic notion, we often forgive a lot of things that we wouldn't if it were family or if it was a romantic relationship. So it was at that moment that I was like, I think instead of calling them out again or continuing this fight, I just have to pull back because it's obvious that we don't have the dynamic that I thought that we had. Because in the times in that dynamic when I had been in the wrong and they came to me to talk about it, I absolutely apologized and I always had the conversation, and then I did the work to my to make them trust me again or to make them know that I cared for them again. And when it was reversed, I was not given the same consideration. So that was the pivotal moment for me. And then I just kind of started viewing every friendship that way. in terms of what kind of effort are they putting in? How do I feel? That's a big thing. How do you feel physically whenever you're with somebody? That's something that my therapist taught me, like how to feel your good emotions and how to feel your bad and where you feel it in your body. And I would do that. And I would be like, every time I leave that friend group, my stomach hurts. I want to throw up, or I feel queasy, or I just like feel like I ate, like I can't eat anything. And that's where I feel my bad emotions. And that's kind of like a very telling sign of these people aren't for you. And that doesn't mean they're bad people. That just means they're not my people. And I think when you are trying to keep a friendship alive simply because you've been friends with them for a long time, but the compatibility and the respect and the care is not there, you find yourself at odds a lot with those friends, and you find yourself like feeling self-conscious anytime you're around them, or doubting yourself constantly, or feeling like you're not good enough because you're not matching the standards that they have, or they're not matching the standards that you have. So, yeah, and that was a very long answer to your question. That's just that moment was the turning moment for me that it started to click.
Listen,
Have you
that's
experienced
have I
Oh, go
experienced that?
Yeah, have do
Yeah,
you
I
have
mean,
moments like that?
I've had my lot of bad friendships, right, and my
Mhm.
few good ones that I'm super close to, that I love very much, that I would genuinely do just about anything for. But to your credit, I'm glad that you were able to sort of suss out, right, the bad friendship, and understanding that that is sort of a toxic response when somebody's sort of gaslighting you into making it
Mhm.
seem like you're the bad person because you heard information that wasn't supposed to be heard, right? Now, I do believe in like venting about friends, right? Like sometimes there's one thing that
Yeah.
about a friend that you're just like, holy, listen, Susan the other day, she just was like, holy, like what's wrong with you? Like, and you're venting to your friends about her. But then there
Right.
comes a level, I think, like where it's toxic, where you're genuinely trying to spin a narrative about how horrible this
Mhm.
person is. Because friendships are kind of like relationships, like you were saying, right? Where, you're going to have such great times and you're going to be, connecting so beautifully. But like in every relationship, you're going to fight, right? You're going to have your
Mhm.
disagreements, the moments where, you know what, James, he's annoying the heck out of me, right? Like
He
he's
annoys me
just
so much.
stupid James. There he goes
Yes,
again.
James.
Like, why is he gotta do that again, right? Whatever that is, you're gonna disagree, right? Like maybe you're
Mhm.
not gonna agree with politics, or you're not gonna agree with, your religious beliefs, and you're just gonna clash a little bit. And I think that it's okay to sort of have a moment where you're clashing with your friend, but just know that just like relationships, it should bounce back. And but there's a toxic level of, right, bad mouthing or constantly fighting, where you have to realize, just like in a relationship, hey, we're fighting all the time, and
Mhm.
maybe this isn't working out, right? Like maybe every
Mhm.
time I see you, we're fighting, we're debating, we're talking about something that is ultimately just fracturing the connection that we have. And like you're
Mhm.
saying, like your therapist says, if it's making you feel bad, then leave it. I've been also in I've had like friendship groups where talking about a particular bad experience that sort of woke you up, and well, this one was most notable for me because it was like when I was older, right? Like I went through the trying to be friends, like I said, in junior high and younger, right?
Mhm.
But when I was older, I thought I had friendships all figured out, and I thought I had connections all figured out. Connections with, friends, family, whoever it may be. I thought I had like everything was in the bag. Until I was a part of a friend group. I worked with these people. They were super fantastic. I loved them. But one of the friends had a friend that, he was in a relationship with, who hated me for no reason.
Oh gosh.
Like, there's something about her. She just did not like me. She told me that I just don't like you. And I'm like, okay,
Oh,
great. And when I
cool.
sort of, confronted her on that sort of front of saying, well, okay, well, why just don't you just like me? That's kind of weird for somebody to say. Then it was like, fumbled to give an actual explanation as to why she doesn't like me. And it was
Mm,
because I didn't hang out enough. Yet before it was I was hanging out too much with, her significant other. And I'm just like, okay, like this isn't gonna fly for me. And it was becoming a sort of a toxic relationship. And I've never
mm,
dealt before with a toxic significant other that I was friends with. I was like, hey, I'm friends with with him. And, we and you were kind of friends. It's fun, but now you're sort of trying to control this person and control what friends he has,
mm.
and it's kind of getting in the way of our friendship with me and him, and now I have to deal with you. Or you're always there. Let it be known, okay? When you're in a relationship, be friends with your significant other's friends if you want to, but allow them to have their own personal space. And let's just say she
Mm-hmm.
does not allow him to have personal space.
Mm.
And I realized that dynamic did not work for me, right?
Yeah.
And it was like a huge turning point for me when I realized this person was always talking about how annoying I was being around them all the time. And it was kind of funny because I was during a tough time in my life and I needed friends at that time. And to sort of be pushed away because, I'm around too much, it was kind of sad because I remember I went up to her, for example, right? Because I'm a person that I like to be upfront as best I can. If you allow me to be and you're willing to communicate with me as an adult, I'm going to communicate with you. And I
Mm.
remember in this particular friendship, I went up to this person. I says, "Hey, I would like, hey, it's going around like you're telling everybody I'm and forgive my language, a cock block, a
Oh
person that's
gosh.
always there, with you and your significant other, and I totally understand that. How about we work something out, right? Like maybe a couple, like this weekend or the following weekend, I have the ability to." Essentially just hang out with your boyfriend, and then in these couple of days, right, it's all you, but just give me these couple of days, right? Does that
Mm-hmm.
sound cool? And it's just me and him, guy time, right? And unfortunately that was hit with a resounding no. I'm like, okay, that was pretty toxic in my book. I don't know about you, but like that's where I feel like it was very toxic. And so then from there, I was like, okay, well, I'll just put up with her. She's always there, right? Like, okay, cool. Like, anyway, let me just be friends. It's okay. I'm gonna ignore that. But then the more I ignored it, it just like the lie or the sort of that particular person getting tired of me grew more and more and more, and to the point
Mm-hmm.
where I couldn't even play Xbox with this guy, right? I couldn't play video games with him, and we're not even in the same room. I'm all the way freaking in
Oh,
town
weird.
over, and it just was a very toxic friendship, right? And then there was fractures in that particular group too, because there was another friend who was always causing trouble, right? He was always having an issue, wanting to tell everybody his issue. And
Mm.
when it after you would talk about it with him and sort of work through that issue, then there was another issue that he had. And he was always pulling it out and pulling it out. And I had got to a point within that particular friend group where the friend with his significant other, the other friend who just kept pulling and trying to sort of cause drama between everybody because I don't know, maybe it was fun for him. It just was too much for me, and I realized it was like an epiphany where I'm like, I don't have to be friends with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to. I'm like, I'm an adult. Even if you were an adult, and let's say you're a teen listening to this, just say you're your own person. Put your foot
Mm-hmm.
down, and that is not a friend for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I put my foot down, and it became the bad guy, so to speak, right? That person. Then they got into their little group, and I'm a horrible person, or I'm weird, or whatever the heck. And I'm like, just I don't even care.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes in life, again, where the turning point was for me was that this sort of was a constant, and it was making me, as you were saying before, to sort of tie everything together. It was making me feel bad. I felt like I was the third wheel, or the person getting in the way of that relationship. Then I felt like the person that always had to be the listening ear, and always trying to play middleman, and trying to, make the friends feel good about each other. And hey, nothing's, it's okay. There's no issues here. And it just was constant and constant. And I got so tired to the point where it was just affecting my mental. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing is friends come and go. Now that's something I learned in high school. Every friend says that, oh, we're gonna grow up, we're gonna go to college together, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and then you realize that in the next step in life, they're not there. They're going off on their own, and sometimes that's okay, right? But sometimes it's in the toxic way, where they're trying to drag you down, or they're trying to make you feel bad. And friends that make you feel bad when you're not doing anything, it
Mm-hmm.
that's not a friend for you, you know. And so because they made me feel bad, I says I don't want to put up with this anymore. So you have to take hold of the relationships in your life and start building what I like to call the circle. You know what I mean? You have your, I mean, everybody calls it that. Let's be real. I didn't create that. But anyway, you have to design a circle for yourself with people that you
Mm-hmm.
care about. You have to start filtering, right? What friend is not close friend? What friend is kind of an acquaintance, where like I would love to see them at work, but hanging out with them, I can't really trust them too much, because then they're either blurting out my business or they're going to gossip, right? Tell them only what I want them to hear. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's the friend that you're just so beyond close with that you can count on in a dime. And you would be there for them as well. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
start filtering out your friendships in life. And I don't feel like a lot of people do that. I run into people sometimes that haven't quite mastered that skill, or maybe don't even know about that particular skill. And so I would
Mm-hmm.
offer out to the listeners out there that, if you're not filtering your friends, maybe you should, because also the people you hang out with, ultimately they affect how you feel. They affect sometimes the positive outcome of things that you can do. They hold you back in life in terms of
Mm-hmm.
maybe a career. Maybe there was something that you wanted to do, but you were afraid that your friends were going to judge you, because you're like, oh man, I wanted to go to this convention, but they're going to think I'm a nerd, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you don't need that in your life, so you have to filter. It's an advice I can give, and it's something that I learned to do. So yeah, I don't know, how do you feel about the filtering system? That's how
Oh,
I go about it. You go about, looking at it
just
as
a
a
little different.
relationship, and I'm like, I filter it. What's good for me
I
and what's
think,
not.
yeah, I think that's a good way as well. I think in the end, no matter which way you go, it all comes back to honoring yourself. And they say, like, whoever you're around the most is who you become. And I always thought that, oh, maybe I'll be the influencer and not the influenced in that regard. But no, you can be the influence, but you also are going to be influenced no matter how headstrong you are, no matter how sure you are about yourself. Who you are around truly does influence how you view yourself, how you interact with others, kind of your perspective on life. And I think a lot of people maintain friendships because they want to be a good friend. And then they discount the fact that they have to be a good friend to themselves too. And you have to show up for yourself and treat yourself like you would your best friend. Be kind to yourself, have self compassion. Think about if I had a friend who was friends with somebody else who is treating them in the same manner that this friend is treating you, would you want them to be in that relationship? Absolutely not. So why are you discrediting yourself from that? And to your point, the the friendship and the group that you hang out with affecting your life or career goals? Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, what you do with friends is you spend time with them. A lot of time. You spend energy on them. And if they are not aligned with the kind of life you want or aligned in your goals in supporting you in that, then they are absolutely going to suck you away from that. I had friend groups that I spent a lot of time with them because they were a ton of fun to be around. But then I would find myself constantly out, constantly drinking, waking up hungover the next day, not able to accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish as a creative, like getting this poem done today or getting a chapter done in this book because my mind was too foggy because I was out last night with those friends because when I tried to leave early, they peer pressured me into staying and they called me boring or all of those things. So, absolutely getting friends that support you in the goals that you want to accomplish. Now I have a friend group that if I tell them like, yeah, I'll absolutely go out with you, but I need to leave by this time because I need to be up at this time the next morning, and then that time comes around and I'm saying bye to them, they don't make me feel guilty about that. They're just like, okay, we'll see you next time we see you. Thanks for coming out. Like, thanks for the time that you had. And I feel like that's how friendship should be. It should be respectful. It should be supportive of what you want to accomplish. And not saying that, even if you aren't fully on board, I guess what I'm trying to say in here, I'm getting all round up in my head, but there are friends who are really good at saying the right things. Just as there, I'm going to bring this back around to how I view friendships, just as there are guys and girls who are going to tell you everything that you want to hear because they want to be accepted by you or they like the attention. But what they're saying, they don't actually mean. It's just kind of the game. There's going to be friends who do the same thing, friends who are users who like to have you around because of the things you are able to do for them, the parties you can throw for them, or if you have a membership at some country club or if you have a boat, you're going to have friends who are friends with you because they want the perks of those things. And they're going to say and do the right things to make you feel beholden to be their friend and show up for them. But then if you pay attention, when the tables are reversed, are they doing the same thing for you? Are they showing up for you when you reach out or do they not have time? And it's important, not that I think that you should keep tabs, but I think it's important to note, I guess going back to how do you feel when you're with them? I have this girl group now that I'm with, and anytime I leave any kind of situation with them, whether it be 5 minutes grabbing coffee or 3 hours getting wine drunk listening to jazz, every time I leave that group, all I can think about is I feel so blessed to have this group of girls. I feel so blessed that no matter what, I can text them and they show up for me. Or I can tell them, like, hey, I know we had this, but I've got a really bad headache. Can we cancel? And I'm not going to feel guilty about that. They're going to ask me if they can bring me ibuprofen or soup or something. So it just, friends, they, you can choose them. They're not like family. Like, you can choose your friends. You can choose how you spend your time, who you spend your time with. And I don't know why we often just throw out the bad things with friends because we think that there's some kind of longevity tied to being friends. Like, oh, I've been friends with them for 20 years. Oh, okay, well, 19 of those years they sucked as my friend, but I get to say that I've been friends with them for 20 years. That's not a friend, that's just an accomplishment, I guess. I don't know. Your accomplishment for this is how long I can be loyal to somebody. I'm not really sure, but I don't know why we have such a hard time cutting people out of our lives. And that sounds so aggressive, but I don't think it's a bad context to cut people out of your life.
I think like to that point that you're making of why do we keep friends or people that just aren't good for us? I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's we choose who we think we deserve, right? Same with
Oh,
like
that wallflower
relationships.
quote.
Yeah. And it's the same with friendships, right? Like
Mm.
we think we deserve this friend, or this friend, we again, they've been there for so long, and oh, they just got my back, but in reality they don't, right? Like they're
Yeah.
just asking you for money, or trying to get things out of you, like you're saying, like the users. Or
Hmm.
there's the ones that just want you to listen to them and the bad things that they're going through, and yet when it comes your time, oh, they're busy.
Hmm.
They have certain
Exactly.
things that they're going through, right?
Hmm.
And with they're very selfish in the way that they're friends with you. That's one thing that actually, just to elaborate on, I've had a friend like that, where I was always there. I'm up front. I'm ready to be there. If she calls, I answer. Hey, what's going on? Oh, he's a
Hmm.
douche. Let me tell you about him. He's no good for you, right? You don't need that man, right? He doesn't love you. He's just lying to you, right? Or, this, that, and the other thing, that I'm there for that person in a drop of a hat. Oh, you need help to talk to somebody because you're afraid to drive in the cold by yourself and you need somebody on the line. I'm there for you, right? But then when it came time for me, when it came time for Justin to sort of finally be like, you know what, I keep it in. I try and be this person that's very positive. I need to open up. And maybe I don't want to go to my family, or maybe I don't want to go. I just want to go to you.
Hmm.
And I'm there to share, and that person doesn't care, right? Around, but they just sort of disappear, and it's all about them and me, 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 me. In
Hmm.
friendships, again, to your analogy, like relationships, they need a give and take, right? You need to sort of, even when you're not feeling there, you know, to be able to sort of, listen to that person, because sometimes all they need is an ear, or
Hmm.
to give them an advice, even if they don't take it. You need to sort of just be there for them. And I think friends
Hmm.
need to do that. And, even if you're not feeling so well. That being said, if it's always constant, you're not feeling well, and you're always trying to be there for that person, and that person's not there for you. I also had gone through this. Then that's not a good friend. That's not a close friend. That's a friend that maybe you have fun hanging out with them, but that's a friend you can't rely on. If they
Mm.
can't sit
Fair
there and
weather
hear
friend.
you, yeah, and
Hmm.
you're there for them, like that's not good. And maybe I was
Hmm.
with this person because I felt like I deserved to be with that type of person. Maybe a person that like was always feeling bad, and I thought that maybe I can sort of always be there for them, because I don't always have that friend that's there for me sometimes.
Hmm.
um I don't know, right? Like we go through these, we kind of put ourselves through these bad friendships sometimes, or these horrible situations, and that's why it's important to sort of, you have to reflect. I mean, it's almost like what we talked about last episode, right? The idea of like looking at yourself. Am I happy with me? Am I okay with me? This
Hmm.
applies to just about anything in life. Is you have to take a second to reflect, look back. Are these friendships good for me, right? Another thing that I once was told, right? Like, how do we pick good friends, right? Like, what is the right friend? One of the things that my uncle taught me was, you never want to be the smartest one in the room.
Hmm.
Like, you don't want to always know everything, right? You don't want them
Hmm.
always being yes men, always saying, "Oh yeah, you're right," or knowing everything about everything. No, you want friends that, hey, I have a friend that's an accountant. He knows way more than me about understanding finances and money. I have a friend that knows way more about being a geek, right? And being good, Marvel or something like that, right? You want somebody that always is smarter than you, right? Why? Because I feel
Hmm.
like it's important to you yourself learn, and you want to keep up, right? You're trying to keep up with the knowledge that they have in computers or accounting, because you're like, wow, like they know a lot about it, and you start to learn. And in
Hmm.
turn, that sort of friendship starts to now be a very positive outlook for you, because you're expanding knowledge. You're expanding, maybe even if it's emotional knowledge, right? You're expanding certain parts of yourself that weren't there before. So yeah, I think it's more than just sort of getting along and liking the same things. I mean, you have to have certain values that are the same. Like again, to your analogy, it being a relationship. That being said, with friendships, because they're not relationships, you have a little bit more ability to step aside, understanding the different layer of friendships, of being like, okay, maybe this isn't a close friend, but I know this friend is, I still enjoy spending time with him, but
Mm-hmm.
they also come with the benefit of teaching me something new about myself, right? And you could
Mm-hmm.
sort of separate that you don't agree with everything, that they believe, or that you have a lot in common. But yeah, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I like that. I think friends ultimately are supposed to challenge you in ways that maybe other relationships wouldn't be able to. But I think as long as it's not making you betray yourself to your core, then it's okay. As long as, like you said, I like these qualities in this person, but these qualities not so much. So because of that, this is the relationship I want to have with them. Like this is the distance. And other friendships it's a little bit closer, or other friendships it's further apart. Because I'm sure, I mean, most people have very redeeming qualities and respectable qualities and good things about them that would make them a good friend, but not everyone has to be your best friend. There's, like you said earlier, different levels and layers of friendships. And it's okay to admire somebody from afar and want to be kind to them when you're around them and be friendly with them. But you don't have to accept all of them into you if there's parts of them that are going to make you go against your core beliefs or your standards or even self respect, like respecting yourself.
One of the things that um you were saying is like the idea of like, what is the lifestyle that you want to live, right? Like, how do I want to live? Who like, what would I want to leave behind, right? Almost like the legacy idea of like, what is this
Mm-hmm.
impression that I want to make? Because sometimes there's a quote that says, "Show me who your friends are, and I'll tell you." Show me who you walk
Your
with, and I'll tell
future.
you who you are, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh, I like that.
that very much is, that's a real thing, right? Like, you don't want to
Mm.
surround yourself with a bunch of people that, somebody looks at you and that's who you are. Like, I remember in high school, for example, I hung out with a lot of potheads. Let me tell you, potheads galore. Okay. Was I a pothead? No. Did I ever indulge in pot? Never. I'm a square. Like, I don't even drink. Like, so it's so funny that, but people looked at me, right? And they're like, that guy is a pothead. They always assumed I
Mm.
was a pothead. I'm like, they always wanted me to smoke and I never did. I'm a disappointing friend. No. So it's just kind of funny, because then, like, what type of imprint do you want to leave in life, right? Do you want
Mm.
to be known as the guy that was a pothead? Do you want everybody always making that assumption? And I know we shouldn't make assumptions as humans, but we do. Let's be real,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't want to be. I want to be known with the friend group that was true to the core, that were always people that you can count on, that were, it could be intellectual, very sweet, emotionally intelligent in every way. These are the friends that I want. I have one friend that I know that he'll be there for me in a drop of a hat, and I know people know him, and they know our connection of our friendship, and they're like, okay, these guys, I know I can count on them. That's the
Mm-hmm.
type of friends that I want to make. That's the impression I want to make. That's the, as you were saying, honoring yourself through your friendships, because they very much are a reflection or a shadow that you are casting. And another thing I want to say is, being, when you should rely on friends, right? Like, that's another
Mm.
important part, right? I think, like, sometimes, in life, we're not given the blessing of having family, or the family that you can count on. And friends sort of take up that level of family, right? They sort of replace that. And being able to have that sort of connection is something that's also really important. I don't know if you've ever felt that way, where there's like a friend that's so much like a family member that they almost replace maybe that brother that you couldn't quite have, that was an older brother, or that younger sibling that you've always wanted. Sometimes friends, they sort of take that that helm in a way, and I don't know if you've
Mm.
ever felt that way. But there's so much time to sort of step into that. And so I don't want to go too off topic. We're talking about friends. I want to keep it about friends.
Yes,
And I
yes.
think we hit a lot of the points that we wanted to talk about, right? Honoring
Yeah.
ourselves in the way that we have friendships, right? Filtering, treating friendships like they are relationships, toxic relationships or friendships, I mean, where they're just not good for you. Just root them out. Long story short, root them out. We don't need them, right?
Right.
And what's the sort of, the shadow you want to cast? What's the sort of imprint you
Mm.
want to make with the group of friends that you have? If you're going to be judged solely based on your friends, what are they going to be saying about you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hope you guys, and before actually I wrap up, I want to get your last thoughts, Autumn, on the things that we sort of discussed today.
Last thoughts. For me, I think in everything in life, it comes back to getting to know yourself. And especially in relationships with friends, if you don't know yourself, then you're going to be very influenced to do things that you don't necessarily believe in or want to do. And you're going to be swayed in directions that you didn't see yourself going. So I think at the end of the day, continue getting to know yourself, continue asking those hard questions, being objective about yourself, and setting those standards and those boundaries for yourself and having compassion for yourself in every relationship, but especially with friendships, because at the end of the day, who you surround yourself with influences your life to a degree that I don't think a lot of us take into consideration.
Good final thoughts from our lovely Autumn here.
Thanks.
And
How is
yeah, go ahead.
how's your relationship with Squeaky Door?
Squeaky Door and I
I
listen. We haven't been talking often. We talk
no.
on and off. He was quiet today.
He
Obviously
was
we've been.
quiet. Yeah.
It's one of those things when I was saying sometimes in friendships you argue. You know what I mean? And so we were arguing the other day. I says, "Hey, listen, if you talk next time when we're recording, and I didn't ask you for your opinion, then hey, listen, I don't want to. We're gonna have a problem, right?"
Yeah.
No, me and Squeaky Door were good. Let's be real.
Good,
All right,
good.
okay. Me and Squeaky, he's
Just get
still
a
there.
beer. Get a beer
Yeah, he's still
together.
here.
It'll be fine.
But I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If it was a little, choppy, listen, there's technical difficulty. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, we have to cut sometimes here and there. It happens. It's our second episode. So what? Shoot me. No,
Give
please
us some
don't.
grace.
Yes, give us some grace. I hope you guys again enjoyed the topic. Let's leave a comment down below. Do you guys believe that friendships should also leave an imprint? Do you agree with that statement? How do you feel about that? What are ways that you sort of filter out your friendships, or do you look at friendships as relationships? Do you agree? Yes, no. Let's have a discussion down below. And you be sure that we're going to comment here and there for you guys. But the next episode, we're gonna have again one a month. I gotta update you guys on that, one a month. So I hope you enjoyed this month's episode. Can't wait for the next one. I think we're gonna be talking about emotion for men and women and
We
relationships. I think we're gonna give you that. We're feeling it.
we're feeling it.
So I hope you guys are gonna enjoy the next episode. That being said.